Most people believe high blood pressure comes with obvious warning signs: headaches, dizziness, a general sense that something isn't right. So if you feel fine, you assume everything is fine. That assumption is where the danger begins. I've operated on patients who felt completely normal just days before a stroke. They were living their lives, walking, talking, laughing with family, without a single sign that something serious was building in the background. No warning, no symptoms, no indication of what was coming. Because blood pressure doesn't always announce itself, especially not at night, and especially not after the age of 60. I'm Dr. Jason Watanabe, cardiac surgeon. I've treated and operated on hundreds of patients, and one of the most dangerous patterns I see is something most people, and even many doctors, don't fully track. Today we're going to talk about that hidden pattern, and it starts with a simple problem. The way blood pressure is usually measured. Think about it. You go into a clinic. Your pressure is checked once, maybe twice. It takes about 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Out of the 86,400 seconds that make up your entire day. And that tiny snapshot is often used to guide your entire treatment plan. But here's the part almost no one considers. For a third of your life, you're asleep. And that's when things become far more important. Under normal conditions, your body follows a very specific pattern during sleep. Your blood pressure naturally drops, usually by about 10 to 20%. We call this the dipping pattern. And it's not optional, it's essential. While you sleep, your heart slows down and begins repair processes. Your blood vessels recover from the stress of the day. Your kidneys filter and regulate your internal environment. All of this depends on that drop in pressure. But after 60, the system starts to change. Your arteries gradually become stiffer. They lose some of their flexibility, and the internal control system, the one that regulates that nighttime drop, becomes less consistent. The signals weaken, the rhythm becomes unstable, and for many people, that nighttime drop simply disappears. In some cases, blood pressure doesn't fall at all. In others, it actually rises during sleep. Now think about what that means. You wake up feeling tired. Your mind feels a little slower. You assume you just didn't sleep well. But what's really happening is something much more serious. And it often goes completely unnoticed. Because most measurements only capture that brief moment during the day, not the full picture, not the 8 hours that may matter even more. Let me show you how this plays out in real life. A patient walks into the clinic. His blood pressure reads 120/78. Perfect. Completely normal. But instead of stopping there, we use a 24-hour monitor. He goes home, follows his normal routine, and goes to bed around 11 p.m. At 2 a.m., while he's fully asleep, his blood pressure rises to 164/102. No symptoms, no awareness, nothing to alert him. But physiologically, that's a dangerous level. And it's happening in the middle of the night. So how does this happen? There are 3 key factors, especially common after 60. First, medication timing. Many people take their blood pressure medication in the morning. By the middle of the night, its effect has significantly decreased. There's a gap in protection. Second, hormonal rhythm. Stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline are supposed to drop at night. But in many individuals, they don't follow that pattern anymore. Instead of calming down, they spike. Third, sleep fragmentation. Even brief awakenings, ones you don't remember, activate your nervous system. Each time that happens, your blood pressure surges. And this isn't occasional. It can happen every single night, over and over again. And with each episode, small amounts of damage accumulate inside your arteries, inside your kidneys, inside the delicate structures behind your eyes, silently, progressively, without ever making you feel like something is wrong. And here's the part most people never see coming. Month after month, this process continues silently. No warning signs, no pain, Nothing strong enough to push someone to seek help. The body adapts, it compensates, it keeps going, until one day, it simply can't anymore. In medicine, we actually have a term for this pattern. When blood pressure doesn't drop during sleep, we call those individuals non-dippers. And the numbers are not small. More than half of adults over the age of 65 fall into this category. Think about that for a moment. Not a rare condition, not an exception, the majority. Which means millions of people are carrying a level of cardiovascular risk that their daytime readings will never reveal. Now let's talk about what that means in real terms. People who are non-dippers have up to 3 times higher risk of cardiovascular death compared to those whose pressure drops normally at night. 3 times higher. And here's what makes this even more concerning. Their daytime numbers can look identical. Same readings, same medications, same lifestyle. The difference is what happens during those 8 hours of sleep. And then there's an even more dangerous group. We call them reverse dippers. Instead of dropping, their blood pressure actually rises at night, higher during sleep than when they're awake. For these individuals, the risk becomes even more serious. Stroke risk can increase by 4 to 5 times, and yet, during a routine office visit, they appear completely normal. No red flags, no obvious symptoms. This is the diagnostic gap, and it's bigger than most people realize. Now here's where things get even more interesting, because some of the factors that worsen nighttime blood pressure are already inside your home. Things you may be using every day without any idea of the impact. The first one surprises almost everyone. Licorice root. It sounds harmless, natural, often found in herbal teas that people drink to relax before bed. But licorice contains compounds that interfere with how your kidneys regulate certain hormones. Specifically, it allows cortisol, the stress hormone, to build up in your system. And elevated cortisol at night does one thing very efficiently. It raises your blood pressure. Quietly, without symptoms. You just wake up feeling tired, drained, without understanding why. And here's the tricky part. Licorice isn't always labeled clearly. It can appear as licorice root, sweet root, or even hidden within herbal blends under vague descriptions. The second factor is something many people consider harmless in moderation. Alcohol, especially in the evening. At first, it relaxes you. It can even cause a temporary drop in blood pressure. But a few hours later, often during the deepest phase of sleep, the opposite happens. Your nervous system rebounds. Stress hormones rise. Your body shifts into a more activated state, and your blood pressure spikes. In fact, for some people, the highest blood pressure reading of the entire day happens at around 2 or 3 in the morning, right in the middle of sleep, and they have no idea it's happening. Now the third factor is even more unexpected. Grapefruit juice. Now let's talk about something even more unexpected. Grapefruit juice. On its own, it may seem harmless, even healthy. But when combined with certain medications, especially calcium channel blockers like amlodipine, it can create a serious problem. Here's why. Your liver uses specific enzymes to break down medications at a controlled rate. Grapefruit interferes with those enzymes. When that happens, the medication isn't processed the way it should be. It builds up. What was supposed to act gradually becomes prolonged and unpredictable. And that unpredictability is especially dangerous at night, because while you're asleep, there's no monitoring, no awareness, no immediate response if something goes wrong. So the question becomes, how do you actually know what your blood pressure is doing while you sleep? There is a test designed specifically for this. It's called ambulatory blood pressure monitoring, ABPM. You wear a small device for 24 hours while going about your normal routine. It automatically measures your blood pressure at regular intervals, day and night. This is the gold standard for identifying whether your blood pressure drops properly during sleep, or if it stays elevated. It's the only way to truly see your nighttime pattern, and yet most people over 65 have never had this test. Not because it's unavailable, but because it's rarely ordered unless you ask for it directly. The second test is urine microalbumin, This one looks for tiny amounts of a protein that can appear in your urine when your kidneys are under stress. It's one of the earliest indicators of damage caused by sustained high blood pressure, long before standard kidney tests show anything abnormal. Think of it as an early warning signal, a chance to intervene before the damage becomes permanent. The third test surprises many people: oxidized LDL. You've probably heard of LDL as the so-called bad cholesterol, but oxidized LDL is something different. It's what happens when that cholesterol becomes damaged by oxidative stress, and in that form, it becomes far more harmful to your blood vessels. Standard cholesterol panels don't measure this, but it directly reflects the kind of damage that prolonged high blood pressure, especially at night, can accelerate. When you combine these three, ABPM, urine microalbumin, and oxidized LDL, you get a much clearer picture of what's really happening inside your cardiovascular system. A level of insight that a routine checkup simply doesn't provide. They are accessible, widely available, but in most cases, they won't be ordered unless you specifically ask for them. So write them down. ABPM, microalbumin, oxidized LDL. Bring that list with you. Now let's talk about what you can actually do about this. And we'll start with one of the most overlooked factors of all: timing. When you take your blood pressure medication matters more than most people realize. By habit, most prescriptions are taken in the morning, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the best approach. Most of these medications reach their peak effect within a few hours, and then gradually wear off throughout the day. So if you take your medication at 7 a.m., by the time midnight arrives, its protective effect may be significantly reduced, exactly when your body may need it the most. There was a major study that looked directly at this question. Not a small trial, not a short-term observation. A large-scale investigation following thousands of patients over several years, comparing one simple variable: when people took their blood pressure medication. One group followed the traditional routine, taking it in the morning. The other group took the exact same medication at night before going to sleep. Same drugs, same doses, same patients, only the timing changed. And the results were striking. Those who took their medication at bedtime showed a dramatically lower rate of cardiovascular events, heart attacks, strokes, even cardiovascular-related death. Nearly a 50% reduction, just from adjusting timing. Nothing new added, nothing increased, just using what they were already prescribed in a different way. Now, I need to be very clear here. This is not a recommendation to change your routine on your own. Some medications should not be taken at night, especially certain types like diuretics. This is a decision that must be made with your doctor based on your specific situation, but it is absolutely a conversation worth having, because sometimes one simple question can completely change your treatment strategy. Now let me show you something else, something much simpler, but backed by real clinical evidence. Hibiscus tea. You've probably seen it before. It's common, inexpensive, and easy to find. But what matters isn't the tea itself, it's what's inside it. Hibiscus contains natural compounds called anthocyanins. These are powerful antioxidants, the same type found in foods like blueberries and pomegranates. They help reduce oxidative stress, which plays a direct role in damaging blood vessels and contributing to unhealthy cholesterol changes. But hibiscus does something even more interesting. It affects an enzyme in your body called ACE, the same enzyme targeted by a widely used class of blood pressure medications. That's not a coincidence. It's a measurable biological effect, and this has been studied. In multiple clinical trials, people with mild to moderate high blood pressure who consumed hibiscus regularly showed meaningful reductions in their readings. We're not talking about tiny changes. Reductions in the range of 8 to 14 points in systolic pressure. That's significant. Now there's an important detail most people get wrong. Preparation. Most people make hibiscus tea far too weak to have any real effect. If it's overly diluted, you're not getting the compounds and the concentration needed to make a difference. Using properly measured dried hibiscus flowers rather than generic tea bags or mixed blends makes a substantial difference in potency. Because when it's prepared correctly, you're not just drinking tea. You're introducing a compound with real physiological impact. Here's how to actually prepare it the right way. The details matter more than most people realize. Use water that's hot, but not boiling. Around 90 degrees Celsius is ideal. Then let the hibiscus steep for at least 10 to 15 minutes. Not 5. Not a quick dip. You need enough time for the active compounds to fully extract. When it's done properly, the color should be deep, rich, almost like a dark red wine. If it looks pale or diluted, it hasn't steeped long enough. In clinical settings, the equivalent of about 3 cups per day has been associated with measurable effects. But if there's one cup that matters most, it's the one you drink in the evening, about 1 to 2 hours before sleep. That timing aligns directly with the window where your nighttime blood pressure pattern is being established. Now, one important caution. If you're already taking medication for blood pressure, do not add hibiscus without discussing it with your doctor, because the effects can combine, and that combination may lower your pressure more than expected. This isn't about avoiding it. It's about using it intelligently. Now, let's simplify everything we've covered into 3 clear actions you can take starting today. Just 3. First, go to your kitchen. Look at your teas. Read every label carefully. If you find licorice root, whether it's listed directly or under names like sweet root or hidden inside blends, remove it from your nighttime routine. Move it to earlier in the day, or eliminate it entirely. Second, take an honest look at your evening alcohol habits. No judgment, just awareness. If it's happening regularly, and especially if it's close to bedtime, understand that your body may be experiencing a rebound spike in blood pressure during the night. You may not feel it, but it's happening. A simple adjustment, like moving it earlier, closer to dinner, can make a meaningful difference. Third, take a piece of paper. Write down 3 things. ABPM, microalbumin, oxidized LDL. That's your list. Fold it. Keep it with you. Bring it to your next appointment. Those 3 tests can reveal what standard measurements simply cannot. They show what's happening during the hours when your body is most vulnerable and most overlooked. And this is the part I want you to truly understand. Your cardiovascular system never stops, not for a moment. Right now, as you're listening to this, your heart is beating, your blood is moving, your vessels are under pressure. There is no pause button. And after the age of 60, the margin for silent damage becomes smaller, which means what goes unnoticed matters more than ever. The human body is incredibly resilient. It adapts. It compensates. It absorbs stress quietly, without pain, without obvious signals, until one day it reaches a point where it can't compensate anymore. And for many people, that point is reached at night, while they're asleep, while they're dreaming, without a single warning sign. I've stood beside patients after strokes, after major cardiac events. I've spoken with families in those moments, and those are conversations you don't forget. And in many of those cases, especially in patients over 60, the warning signs were already there. They just weren't seen. They were hidden in data that was never collected, in nighttime blood pressure patterns no one measured, in microalbumin levels that slowly increased over time, in arterial stiffness building quietly in the background. In many of those situations, the outcome could have been different. Not always. Medicine is never absolute, but more often than people realize. Sometimes it comes down to one additional test, one well-placed question, one conversation that goes just a little deeper. And that's why this matters. Because you have every right to ask those questions. About your nighttime blood pressure, about ambulatory monitoring, about medication timing, about the tests we discussed. You are not being difficult. You are not being demanding. You are taking responsibility for your own health, and that makes a difference. Over the years, I've seen a clear pattern. Patients who ask questions, who bring information, who follow up, they tend to receive better care. Not because doctors care more about them, but because the conversation becomes more complete. And better conversations lead to better decisions. Right now, you have something most people don't have when they walk into a medical appointment. You have clarity. You have direction. You know what to ask. So let's bring everything together in a way that's simple and actionable. Your daytime blood pressure reading is only part of the story. What happens at night matters just as much, often more. More than half of people over 65 do not experience the normal drop in blood pressure during sleep, and that alone can increase cardiovascular risk up to 3 times, even when daytime readings look normal. This is a hidden risk, one that standard checkups rarely detect. There are also everyday factors that can quietly make this worse. Licorice root in evening teas, alcohol consumed close to bedtime, grapefruit interacting with certain medications. There are 3 key tests that reveal what's really happening. ABPM, urine microalbumin, oxidized LDL. They are available, affordable, but in most cases they only happen if you ask. We also discussed medication timing, how taking certain prescriptions at night, under medical guidance, may significantly improve protection during the hours that matter most. And even simple additions, like properly prepared hibiscus tea, may offer supportive benefits when used appropriately. So here are your 3 steps. Check what you're consuming at night, adjust what may be working against you, and walk into your next appointment prepared, with the right questions. Because at the end of the day, this is what matters most. Your heart is working for you every second of your life, day and night. And the more you understand what affects it, the better chance you have to protect it long term. Take care of your heart, and don't ignore what happens when you're asleep. Let's bring this down to something simple you can actually do. 3 steps. That's it. First, go to your kitchen tonight and check your tea cabinet. Read the labels carefully. If you see licorice root, whether it's listed directly or hidden inside blends, don't use it before bed. Second, write this down on a piece of paper. ABPM, microalbumin, oxidized LDL. Keep that list with you. That's your agenda for your next appointment. Third, ask one simple question. Should I be taking my blood pressure medication in the evening instead of the morning? That one question alone could change everything. Now I want to hear from you. Has your doctor ever talked to you about nighttime blood pressure? Have you ever worn a 24-hour monitor? Let me know in the comments. I read them, and your experience can help someone else realize what they should be asking at their next appointment. If this video gave you something valuable, share it with someone you care about, especially someone over 60, a parent, a partner, a close friend, because this is exactly the kind of information that often gets lost between appointments, and sometimes that gap makes all the difference. And if you want to go deeper into protecting your heart as you age, subscribe to the channel. We're just getting started, and there's a lot more you need to understand. One last thing, and I want to be very clear about this. Everything I've shared here is for educational purposes. It's based on current research and my experience as a cardiac surgeon, but it is not a substitute for personalized medical care. Your health is individual. Your medications are specific to you. Your body responds in its own way. So before making any changes, whether it's adjusting medication timing, adding supplements, or changing your routine, talk to your doctor. That conversation isn't optional. It's essential. Because better information leads to better questions lead to better decisions, and better decisions lead to better outcomes. Your heart has been working for you every second of your life, day and night, without pause, without complaint. The least we can do is pay attention. You now know what to ask. You know what to look for. You know which tests matter. So walk into your next appointment prepared, because that preparation can change everything. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care of yourself and of the people you love.